Welcome everyone to episode 60 of Let's Talk Wrestling. It is the peak of unique Jordan Megas. We are back. I just finished watching Super Showdown. It just went off the air and man, I gotta say, it was something. And by something, I do not mean super, as this show would advertise. We had matches like The Undertaker versus Goldberg, Dolph Ziggler versus Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship, a 50-man over-the-top rope battle royal, Triple H versus Randy Orton, and it has been lackluster, to say the least. But I will get into that here in just a minute. First, I would like to welcome everyone to the show. Welcome back to my returning listeners, and greetings and salutations to my brand new listeners. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, I thank you so much for checking it out. And I would like to offer you a chance to try Audible free for 30 days. All you got to do is go to audibletrial.com/letstalkwrestling. You get a free audiobook download. You get 30 days to try the service free of charge. Over 180,000 titles to choose from. A lot of wrestling books on there as well. Some of them read by the wrestlers themselves. And you can cancel your trial at any time. If you decide the service is not for you, cancel at any time. That book that you download is yours to keep forever and a day. So once again, that link, audibletrial.com/letstalkwrestling. And it has been a very polar week when it comes to WWE's content within the last 7 days. Honestly, I wouldn't even say polar. I would say it was a nosedive. It was like a roller coaster that had no, loops or going back up. We had NXT TakeOver 25, which was spectacular, fantastic. We had Monday Night Raw, which was, in a word, I would probably say abysmal. SmackDown wasn't too much better. NXT, of course, being the recap show for TakeOver 25, so it wasn't anything, super special. We had NXT UK, which it's performing, I don't think it's gotten to a level of exposure where, everybody watches it. I know everybody that's on there because I'm still learning names on that roster because everybody there is relatively fresh to the mainstream audience. So I'm still trying to garner interest in that product. And now we have this Super Showdown. And it should have just been called WWE Showdown. As I said earlier, it was not so super. So I'm going to go ahead and run through this first, just so I can get it out of the way, because I really want to talk about NXT TakeOver 25. So we had a kickoff show match. We had the Usos versus the Revival. Usos won. I didn't watch the pre-show. I didn't know there was a kickoff for this. To be honest, I thought the show started 2 hours before it actually aired. I thought it started at 11 o'clock Central, where in fact it was 1 o'clock Central. So I got everything ready. I got a nice lunch, ready to sit down, watch this spectacular supposed to be event in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and I checked the start time. It is in 2 hours. So a little bit delayed, but I still had high hopes, and I was so wrong for that. The show opened with Seth Rollins versus Baron Corbin for the Universal Championship. Corbin kind of dominated Seth Rollins throughout this entire match. Rollins had his ribs taped up because he got assaulted by Brock Lesnar this past Monday. The whole thing with that, Brock Lesnar, obviously, he has the Money in the Bank briefcase. He was proclaimed to have, he was going to cash in this past Monday night because, he came out with the boombox, tricked out Money in the Bank briefcase. He was dancing around. WWE management, quote unquote, didn't like it. Stephanie sent out a PSA, and Paul Heyman said, fine, you want Brock Lesnar to cash in? Fine, he'll cash in Monday night. And did he do that? No. He attacked Seth Rollins, and he looked like he was about to cash in, but then he told Paul Heyman, Friday, we're going to do it Friday. And I've been dreading that. I've been dreading the thought of Brock Lesnar taking over another Saudi Arabia event. And so Rollins wins the match. Corbin, he dominates Rollins throughout the entire thing. Gets in the referee's face because he thought it was a slow count. The ref pushes back, starts arguing. I can't even remember the last time I've seen that happen on WWE television, where the referee actually defends themselves and stands up for themselves. But while that happens, Rollins rolls him up and gets the 3 count. After the match, Corbin hits the end of days, and that leads to Brock Lesnar marching down to the ring, prepared to cash in. He has a chair with him, and I feel like this was a rib to Batista. I just cannot help but think that, because Brock, he got into the ring, Paul was coming to get into the ring, and Paul Heyman tripped on the middle rope. He flung the briefcase kind of to the center, and while Brock Lesnar was looking at Paul Heyman in, I guess, disgust or surprise, shock, whatever you want to call it, Rollins hit a low blow, started assaulting Brock with the chair that Brock brought down, no less. And there was no cash-in. So, thankfully, Seth Rollins is still our Universal Champion. Honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing Baron Corbin with that title, but not with the suit. There's certain things that a superstar should and should not wear during certain times. One of them, to me, being if you are a champion, you should not be wearing a suit in the ring, unless it's like an impromptu match. Like say Corporate Kane became champion, God forbid. Corporate Kane became champion, and he wrestled impromptu. He had to wrestle in a suit to defend his title or whatever. But in this case, Baron Corbin, he has not been the general manager of Raw or in an authority position for almost 6 months now. There's no reason for him to still wear that, looking like a corporate goon. But he's still marching around in his nice collared shirt and his slacks. Put on some wrestling gear and be the badass heel that we know you can be. And maybe then you'll turn some heads. But for now, I'm glad that Seth Rollins walked out with the title. And we'll get to future matches here in a moment, because they did have some matches announced near the end of this Saudi Arabia event, but we'll get through this card first. Let's finish this candy bar before we open up another one. Finn Balor versus Andrade for the Intercontinental Championship was next. Finn Balor obviously came out as the Demon. And, of course, great presentation every single time the Demon comes out. But he got pyro this time. Almost everyone got pyro. Gosh, Bobby Lashley got pyro, Triple H got pyro, The Undertaker got pyro, Goldberg, Finn Balor. There's very few people that did not get pyro. Even the winner of the 50-man Battle Royal got pyro. And, like I said, we'll get to that. But, it makes me upset to a degree. Because we have all these events, what we see as the 4 biggest events. SummerSlam, Survivor Series, the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania. And now the only time we ever see pyro is at WrestleMania. And now it's even become very basic pyrotechnics. Just simple. It's not all too flashy. But we go to Saudi Arabia, and almost everybody's got pyro. And it looks nice. It's aesthetically pleasing. Why? Well, I don't have to ask why. Because we know it's because Saudi Arabia, they paid for it. And that's where I back off on it, where I don't put full blame on WWE for putting everything they've got into this Saudi Arabia show that's not going to mean anything in 6 months. But, the Saudi prince, he pays for it, so get your money's worth, I guess. But great match between these two. Finn Balor retained the Intercontinental Championship. There was a moment or two where I figured Andrade was going to win the Intercontinental Championship. But Balor managed to pull it out, and we have no title changes thus far. Roman Reigns versus Shane McMahon had little to no interest in this match. The finish came when Roman Reigns was fixing to hit a spear. Shane kicked him, then got hit with an uppercut. When he got knocked down, I guess he took the referee down with him. Then Drew McIntyre came into the ring, hit Reigns with a Claymore, and Shane got the cover, so he got the cheap win. I don't know how the referee didn't see it. Of course, I wasn't paying enough attention to see if anything actually happened to the referee, or if he was just checking on Shane. I guess that shows, that goes to state my opinion on it, on this whole event, because it just was not the best to me. The Lucha House Party versus Lars Sullivan, I figured this was going to be, 3 minutes and done. Lars Sullivan wins. But Lars Sullivan did win, but he won by disqualification when the Lucha House Party just started to go off on him. Going with the 3-on-1 assault, because it was a 1-on-3 tag, where the members of the Lucha House Party, they had to tag into the match. And I don't know who denotes when superstars are going to have to tag in, or when they could all be in at the same time. I guess, plot armor. But in this case, they had to tag in, and then all 3 of them came into the ring, attacked Lars Sullivan, went to the outside. Lars took them all out, and, that was that. Nothing all too special. I feel like they're downplaying Lars Sullivan as a monster. You think of these monsters that they bring up in WWE. Ryback is a good one that comes to mind. He had this big, dominant run. He would beat 2 people at a time, no problem. 3 people at a time, no problem. But Lars Sullivan, he gets that challenge, and he has to win by disqualification. I get that, you want him to seem a tiny bit vulnerable, but why did you need it this quick, Build him up some more. Make him look stronger. Make him look like more of a threat before you start taking him down pegs. Triple H versus Randy Orton. 15 years in the making, I guess. Because we all know we haven't seen this one before in 2004, 2007, 2008, 2009, and so on and so forth. But it was a decent back-and-forth match. Randy Orton came out with the win with an RKO out of nowhere, as they like to say. Apparently, that's the name of the finisher now. Not just the RKO, but the RKO out of nowhere. Because they say that every single time that he hits an RKO. But Randy Orton wins the match. We get to a online segment. I saw this before the Saudi Arabia event actually started. R-Truth, they were at the airport yesterday, getting ready to take off. R-Truth lost the 24/7 title to Jinder Mahal. And while on the flight, I would guess that they were landed when they actually did this. But while they were, presumably in the air over the Red Sea, Jinder Mahal decided to take a nap. R-Truth covered him, got the 3 counts, so R-Truth is still the 24/7 champion, and I'm already sick of this title. I guess it's a little bit fun to see something like this reintroduced, but if you're not going to have anything other than, comedy out of it, don't put it on your flagship show like that. Don't make it that prominent, because really, how important is it? When you get to the bottom of it, how important is that 24/7 championship really going to be? There's your answer right there. It's not going to be. So R-Truth is now, a 3-time, 4-time 24/7 champion. Jinder Mahal's already a 2-time champion. Elias already a 2-time champion. So, out of the 5 men that have held the championship, 3 of them already have multiple reigns. And we're not even, 2, maybe 3 weeks into the belt's inception? That just goes to show, anything can happen in WWE. We had Bobby Lashley versus Braun Strowman. It was better than I thought it was going to be. This is probably, the most pleasantly surprising match for me. Because everything else, I had decent hopes for it, and it kind of let me down. This one, I thought of it as an afterthought, more so than anything. But these two, they did rather well in this match. I thought they performed really well. Bobby Lashley showing off that insane strength of his. And Braun Strowman ended up hitting the power slam for the 3 count. Braun Strowman over Bobby Lashley. We get Kofi Kingston versus Dolph Ziggler for the WWE Championship. And this was a decent match as well. You know, it didn't live up to my expectations knowing these two and how well they work together, but I still appreciate the match that I got, you know. And it was weird because we know Kofi's the face, Dolph's the bad guy, but in this match it kind of seemed opposite, especially near the end. Dolph Ziggler, I think he was about to win, and then Xavier Woods hits him with a kick while the referee's not looking. Kofi hits Trouble in Paradise for the 1-2-3. So Dolph, he kind of did get screwed out of the WWE Championship. But Kofi does retain, and Ziggler, he goes backstage for an interview, and he says that Kofi's now exposed for what he is, and that's a coward, and now he wants a steel cage match with Kofi Kingston, which we get matches announced for WWE Stomping Grounds, which is going to be their next special in just over 2 weeks. And I say that with a slight chuckle because we're not even halfway through the year. And we have had, including NXT, we've had, I think, 10 or 11 pay-per-view or special events on either the network, on pay-per-view. If it's not a regular show, then it counts. You know, we had the Royal Rumble, we had Elimination Chamber, we had Fastlane, WrestleMania, that live event where it was the Shield's last run. We had Money in the Bank. We had this current Super Showdown. And then NXT TakeOver Phoenix, TakeOver New York, and TakeOver 25, which I will get to in a minute. And I love that show. I cannot wait to talk about that. But it's overkill at this point. We've had 10 specials in just over 5 months. And we got another one coming up in just over 2 weeks. June 23rd, WWE Stomping Grounds. Can't miss it. But we have matches announced for the show. We have Bayley versus Alexa Bliss for the SmackDown Women's Championship, even though Alexa is a Raw superstar. Because of this wild card rule. As much as I don't want them to do it, just get rid of the brand split if this is what you're going to do with it. You know? If you're just going to have matches where Raw superstars can win SmackDown championships, what is the point of having superstars on separate brands? Either get rid of the wild card rule or get rid of the brand split. You got to do one or the other. To me, it's an ultimatum. It's already become redundant to me. But we have that. Becky Lynch will once again defend the Raw Women's title against Lacey Evans. Seth Rollins will defend the Universal Championship in a rematch against Baron Corbin. So Baron gets his rematch. Dolph also gets his rematch, facing Kofi Kingston in a steel cage match for the WWE Championship. I'm actually very much looking forward to that match because we've seen what these guys can do in a regular match. We've seen what they can do in a ladder match. I'm excited to see what these two can do in a cage. We have the 50-man Battle Royal, and everybody is just as you thought it was going to be from the get-go. It was sloppy at best in the first, few minutes until it got down to like maybe 6 people. We had people getting thrown out left and right, and to me, this shows what I was saying last week about, there being so much talent on the roster that you're not utilizing, and they're doing absolutely nothing with them. Okay? A few noteworthy eliminations thing here. We had Titus O'Neil. He came out, he had his own music. He came out and did the same exact thing he did at Crown Jewel, which was run down to the ramp and then pretend or slow down so he doesn't slide under the ring again, because apparently now anytime he's going to a Saudi event, that's what he's going to do. But Titus O'Neil eliminates both members of the Viking Raiders and then gets eliminated maybe 20 seconds later. Buddy Murphy, one of the hottest commodities in 205 Live, recently moved to SmackDown and got eliminated like nothing. Matt Hardy eliminated both members of the Revival and then got dumped out like 2 seconds later. Shinsuke Nakamura got eliminated like nothing. Rusev got eliminated like nothing. And all of these superstars are exceptional individuals. They are great talents. There is no reason to have superstars like this being tossed like they're nothing. So we get down to the final 6, get down to the final, I want to say the final 3, final 2, and it was Elias being the last one eliminated to the winner, Mansoor, who is an NXT prospect, and I think he was on NXT a couple weeks ago, beating Sean Maluda. And I think neither of them had a win going into that event or going into that matchup. But the reason why he won, it's a hometown thing. You know, Mansoor, he's from Saudi Arabia. He had his tryout at the first Saudi Arabia event, and now he's winning at it. And, you know, I'm not going to say I don't like it, because I kind of do. But it shows that WWE is kind of pandering to their buyers. You know, and I'm not talking about the everyday consumers like you and me. I'm talking about the Saudi government or Saudi royal family, whoever's actually buying this WWE special every single time they come back to Saudi Arabia. But we had Mansoor, who's of Saudi Arabian descent, speaking of fighting for people in his country, which is great, you know, but it's so hypocritical because he's winning. They had him win because he was in his homeland. Meanwhile, anytime we're in the United States, usually superstars lose in their homeland. They will lose in their hometown, you know? Like, Randy Orton won't pick up a win in St. Louis. Kurt Angle barely ever picks up a win in Pittsburgh. Just a couple examples off the top of my head. You know, the Hardy Boys didn't win the first TLC match at SummerSlam in North Carolina. It's a lot to think about when you have superstars that are being treated one way, but because these guys gave you a whole bunch of money, you're going to pander to them in this aspect. Granted, it was a great way to get Mansoor over. Now you got to do something with him. You can't just let this be a one-off thing, okay? I can't even remember if they had something like this at the Crown Jewel event. I think they just had the tournament, but they had the Greatest Royal Rumble, and Braun Strowman won that. Didn't really get anything out of it. He got a Money in the Bank win about a month or two later, but that's it. I don't see Mansoor doing the same. Hopefully he can become something prominent in NXT, at least maybe challenge for the North American Championship at some point, maybe at War Games come November. That's enough time, right? About 5 months. But after that, you know, he celebrated with his people. We had the main event of the evening, Goldberg versus The Undertaker. This was the match that everyone was, I don't know if I would say excited for, but that's the match that was being, you know, promoted the most. That was the main event of the evening. Goldberg and The Undertaker, both spectacular entrances. Goldberg, I guess he bangs his head on the door before he opens it and comes out. He was bleeding before this match started. Before he came out to the ring. Before he made it to the stage. This man was already busted open. He wasn't, you know, he wasn't pinned yet. But he had a dot. He had a dot of, like, you know, he just got, like, he got pricked in the head. And I don't know if that happened when he banged the door or if they just very, very, very poorly hid the fact that he was going to get busted open in the match. But the match starts out how you kind of thought it would. Undertaker throws a right, and that leads Goldberg to spearing The Undertaker. Speared him twice. Taker kicked out. And after that, it was god-awful. It was sad to watch more than anything. The Undertaker, he looks as good as he's ever looked. You know, especially in the last 10 years. He looked very good in terms of looks. Actual looks, you know. He physically looked well. He was in shape. He didn't show too many signs of age until the match started. Because the match concluded with Goldberg hitting a botched jackhammer, which was basically turned into a brain buster, Undertaker landing straight on his head. I don't know how that man has not broken his neck in that spot. We've had two absolutely terrible choke slams. I don't know if the timing was off. Undertaker couldn't get him up. Goldberg forgot to jump. Something. But especially the second choke slam didn't even get Goldberg above his waist. And that choke slam got the Undertaker the 3 count. So the Undertaker defeats Goldberg in this big once in a blue moon matchup. First time ever. And it was something to forget. That's the best way I can put it. I will not remember it in probably 2 months' time. So overall, this Saudi show, disappointing. I can't really say anything positive about it, other than the fact that, Bobby Lashley and Braun Strowman did better than I thought they would. That's really all I can say. Before we get to other shows, other events, I do want to send my sincerest condolences to the family of All Japan Pro Wrestling's Atsushi Aoki, who has passed away following a motorcycle accident. He was riding his motorcycle in Tokyo, and he was riding in a tunnel. His motorcycle, I guess, didn't curve when he tried to turn, and he went smack dab into a tunnel wall. And he did not live much long after that. So, passing away. I'm not entirely I don't know how old he was. But in All Japan, he was a 3-time All-Asia Tag Team Champion with Hikaru Sato and Kotaro Suzuki. A former 4-time World Junior Heavyweight Champion. He won the Junior Battle of Glory in 2016. And he won the tag team version of the tournament with Hikaru Sato 3 times. In Pro Wrestling Noah, he was a 2-time former GHC Junior Heavyweight Tag Champion, along with Naomichi Marufuji and Kotaro Suzuki. And in 2006, Aoki was rated Rookie of the Year by the Wrestling Observer newsletter, which was a huge deal. So, obviously, big plans were made for him, or he was destined for greatness. So, it's sad to see someone like that go. And I want to say he was maybe in his mid-30s. And that's too early for anyone to pass away. So, rest in peace to Atsushi, and my condolences to his family. So now we'll stick to Japan here. Jon Moxley competed in his first non-WWE match in, I want to say, over 8 years, possibly 9. But he won the IWGP United States Championship from Juice Robinson in a match that Moxley has called liberating. In his post-match interview with the press, because they always have press interviews after an event at, in New Japan, he said, he's saying, thank you for freeing me. Thank you for letting me do what I do. I thought he was going to, be so sadistic, be so twisted, or violent sounding. But he sounded so sincere in this. He really feels liberated. It's one thing to say, I feel liberated because I don't want to be with that company anymore, or they made me feel trapped. It's another thing to let it show. And here it did. Moxley looked free in this. He and Juice Robinson teared it up. Jon Moxley became the United States champion, and good for him, I understand that he felt trapped in WWE. He didn't enjoy it. You could tell that Jon Moxley did not enjoy what he was doing in WWE. He was even asked to wrap up the European tour, or extend his contract so he could wrap up the European tour by Vince McMahon, and Moxley basically told him to, piss off. And I'm glad he did. I'm glad he said that to Vince McMahon, because otherwise we would not see this, for another couple months. Who knows if he would have even had a title shot. But now that he's champion, we know that he is going to be facing Shota Umino at Dominion this coming Sunday night, or morning, whichever one, depending on your time zone. On that show, we have Jon Moxley versus Shota, Satoshi Kojima versus Shingo Takagi, Yoshihashi and Jushin Thunder Liger versus Zack Sabre Jr. and Minoru Suzuki, Ryosuke Taguchi, Juice Robinson, and Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Jay White, Taiji Ishimori, and Chase Owens. Taiji facing Ishii for the Never Openweight Championship. The Guerrillas of Destiny facing Evil and Sonata, defending their heavyweight tag team championships for IWGP. Junior heavyweight title, Dragon Lee versus Will Ospreay. Intercontinental title, Kota Ibushi versus Tetsuya Naito, which I'm voting to be match of the night. And then the main event, the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, Kazuchika Okada versus Chris Jericho. Now, I'm excited to see that because we know that Chris Jericho, he's slated to be in the match against Hangman Page for the first ever AEW World Championship at their event All Out in August. But now, there could be a possibility where Chris Jericho beats Okada, becomes the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, and wins the AEW title. Now, I'm not saying that will happen. I'm not saying that's what I think will happen. I'm saying it can. It all depends on what happens this Sunday, and, you go from there. Now, I'm pretty sure that title will go to Hangman Page. He seems like the first centerpiece that AEW might focus on. But, anything can happen in professional wrestling. Like they love to say it, anything can happen. And with Chris Jericho, revamping himself the way he has in the last couple years, he's become one of the hottest things in professional wrestling once again. And it's a testament to that man's true character, He's definitely not one of the greatest in WWE history. He is one of the greatest in professional wrestling history. He's one of the few men that can change his gimmick a number of times. He's been Lionheart Chris Jericho, Y2J Chris Jericho, Highlight Reel Chris Jericho, Codebreaker Chris Jericho, The List Chris Jericho, and now this evil Chris Jericho, this Judas type Chris Jericho. He's changed his character so many times, and he's stayed consistently relevant, like highly relevant, near the main event spot every single time. This man is incredible. Not just one of the best in WWE, one of the best, period. And he's been doing this since what? Early 90s? It's 2019. He's been doing this. If he hasn't done it for 30 years yet, he's damn near close. And he's still wrestling for the heavyweight championship. And it's not a Hulk Hogan situation where he's past his prime and it's just because he's a big name. Chris Jericho can still go in the ring. Chris Jericho can still perform on these big events against these young, hot, fresh superstars. And that's a testament to why you could say he's in the conversation to be the greatest ever. Now, that may not be everyone's opinion. It's definitely not fact because it's always opinion. It's all subjective. But to me, Chris Jericho has earned the right to be in that conversation for greatest of all time. So, Dominion being in a couple days, it's going to be an exciting show. I don't know if I'm going to stay up to watch it. Now having moved and having my schedule changed all around, I'm having to adjust. I don't know if I'm going to have time to watch it live. I'll probably watch a few of the matches on replay. Okada, Jericho, Ibushi, Naito, and the Jon Moxley match. But I don't know if I'll watch the whole thing. So now we have NXT TakeOver 25. There's not too much news going into this actual week in wrestling, but we had the big Super Showdown, we had the stuff with New Japan, we had the passing of Atsushi, and now we have the cream of the crop in the last week, which is NXT TakeOver 25. And what a show it was. I don't think there was a single match on this card that did not impress me. NXT TakeOver 25 definitely did that. I cannot say anything bad about this show, except for the fact that maybe for the fact that Shayna Baszler is still the NXT Women's Champion, and that's still not entirely a bad thing. You know, I don't mind it all too much, but I'm ready for her to not have the title. I'm ready for someone else to have the title, whether it's Kyrie, whether it's Candice, but we'll get to it. So we started things off with Matt Riddle versus Roderick Strong in a singles match. And right now, I'm looking at the card. I'm looking at Dave Meltzer's ratings, and someone told me, or someone posted and told me that I was being hypocritical, saying, oh, you're bad-mouthing Dave Meltzer and his ratings one week, and the next week you're using them as a point for your argument. Why are you being so hypocritical? I can get how that can be seen as hypocrisy, but let's get one thing clear, okay? And that is, I'm not saying don't trust Dave Meltzer. I'm saying don't take it as gospel. Don't not watch a match and say whether it's good or not based off of his rating. You may enjoy it more than Dave Meltzer. You may enjoy it less, but you do not know until you watch. However, Dave Meltzer, he is for the most part, reliable source because he's been doing what he's been doing for, so many years. It's not bad to say, I watched this show because Meltzer rated it so high. But it is bad to say, Meltzer rated it so high, so it must have been a good show. There's a difference between taking suggestion and taking opinions. And if you say, it's good, but you didn't actually watch the show, you just look at the rating, then that is you taking someone else's opinion. And that's the moment, in my personal opinion, that's the moment to me that you stop becoming a wrestling fan. Or a fan of anything. Whenever you take someone else's opinions and pass them off as your own. As if you have insight on what is going on. And I don't do that, I go off of it sometimes. Sure, I'll mention it. But I don't say, Dave Meltzer rated this, 5 stars, so it's a 5-star match. I have my own star ratings, I'm looking at the star ratings right now. Some of these, I don't know if I would change. I might have given Tyler Breeze and Velveteen Dream a higher rating, but, for the most part, he's kind of right, but this is his opinion, and I just happen to agree with some of it. Sometimes I don't agree with him, sometimes I do. Okay? And with this card, I don't know if I would say it was spectacular, perfect, or better than anything I've ever seen NXT do. But I think this one will go down in the books as one of the top 5 NXT's TakeOver specials, moving forward. Now, whether that's true in a few years or not, that's debatable. That's something we won't know until we see the events they put on. But as of right now, I would put it in my top 5. TakeOver 25 was a home run. No, actually, it was a grand slam. I'll go that far. The show began with Matt Riddle versus Roderick Strong. Meltzer rated it 4.5 stars. And it's not out of 5 anymore because, he likes to give stars over 5 now. We have Matt Riddle versus Roderick Strong. Great match. Great psychology between the two. And, I'm listening to this match. I'm listening to the commentary. And you can hear a significant difference between whenever people are knowing what they're talking about and when people are being told what to say. And NXT TakeOver, I feel, is one of those products you're not told what to say. You're given a guideline maybe, but you let the emotion flow through you, and it shows. Mauro Ranallo talking about the ring psychology, about working on the back, about Roderick Strong's spot in the Undisputed Era. Matt Riddle needed to make a name for himself. Whereas on Raw, you'd see this, and you'd probably have Corey Graves and Byron Saxton bantering to each other for 5 minutes while Michael Cole does play-by-play. Nothing really adding to the story of what's going on inside the ring. No talk of ring psychology whatsoever. But this match was great. Matt Riddle winning against Roderick Strong. No titles on the line, but it was just a great opener. We had the NXT Tag Team Championship ladder match. The titles were vacant. It was Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch versus the Street Profits versus the Undisputed Era versus the Forgotten Sons. And this was a tremendous ladder match. Now, to me, it kind of seemed like one of the more tame ladder matches. I don't know what it was. I mean, I know there was a hole in Kyle O'Reilly's back. I know, people literally got destroyed and threw their bodies, threw caution to the wind for this, and it was still an amazing match. But for some reason, it just felt a little bit less chaotic, which is not a bad thing because, this was still an amazing match. And we got new NXT Tag Team Champions in the Street Profits. Montez Ford jumping from the corner onto a ladder, knocking, I believe it was Steve Cutler, off the top of the ladder to claim the titles. And so Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, the Street Profits, your new NXT Tag Team Champions. And, I'm excited to see where it goes forward. I'm honestly now excited to see, a Street Profits versus Forgotten Sons. I don't know about Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. To me, they're just kind of those guys that can perform on a good match but don't have the best character, so you strut them out when you need a body. When you need a pair of bodies. And I wish I could say more than that. I wish I could say that Lorcan and Burch are much more than that, but at this point, I don't know if I can tell myself that. Because that's what they seem to be to me. You barely see them throughout the year, but whenever the tag team division needs a team, they strut them out as if they've been here this entire time. We had the North American Championship on the line. Tyler Breeze versus Velveteen Dream for the North American Championship. This is the match I was looking forward to more than anything. Meltzer gave this 3.75 stars. I would have given it maybe a little bit higher. Bump it up to 4. The character clashing. This was a match made in heaven for me. This is one of... If Tyler Breeze stayed on the main roster, this would have been a dream match for me. What if the pompous pretty boy of NXT today faced the pompous pretty boy of the reincarnation of NXT? And that's what we got here. Tyler Breeze now back full-time in NXT, losing his opportunity against the Velveteen Dream, but man, did this have some great action. The match ended with a Death Valley Driver, Purple Rainmaker, 1, 2, 3. The two took a selfie in the ring together, and it was funny. I saw this a couple days ago, where Disco Inferno, he commented on this, them taking a selfie together after the match, and saying, a gimmick doesn't work or something like that when they take a selfie in the ring, or wrestling's gone bad when you see superstars taking selfies in the ring together after wrestling each other. And then the Hurricane, Shane Helms, just comes in and says, 70s wrestler doesn't get modern gimmicks, or something along those lines, and it just made me chuckle. You embarrassed yourself there, Disco. We had the NXT Women's Championship match, Io Shirai versus Shayna Baszler. As I mentioned earlier, Shayna retaining the NXT Women's Championship, but Io Shirai lost it after the encounter. Going to town on Shayna Baszler, I think, with a kendo stick, and then hitting a moonsault onto Shayna Baszler while holding a steel chair. That had to hurt both of them. It looked vicious, and I would bet just about anything Baszler was losing that title at TakeOver Brooklyn 5. I don't know to who, but she's losing that title. And then we had Adam Cole versus Johnny Gargano for the NXT Championship. Meltzer rated this 5 1/4 stars. Honestly, this was, to me, a 4 3/4 star match. Now, because I don't want to give out 5-star matches to just anything. And this definitely wasn't just anything. But I also want to digest it some more before I say, it was a 5-star match. It took me a while to say CM Punk and John Cena at Money in the Bank was a 5-star match. It took me a while to say that Taker Michaels at 25 was a 5-star match. You know, it takes time to really think about this and decide what to give it. And now I feel, you know, sometimes he may just give it the high star match because it's who he wants to see prominent. You know, Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega, while they did put on amazing matches, were they really, you know, 6-star, 7-star matches? You know, it was supposed to be a 5-star match. And now it's just overkill. So I won't go above 5 stars for any match. Because I feel 5 stars is, you know, as close to perfection as you can get. And this match, it was damn close to 5 stars for me. Adam Cole eventually winning the NXT Championship. Didn't need help from the Undisputed Era. You know, he goaded Gargano into believing that he was calling him out, but he took advantage of it. You know, took out Gargano, hit him with the last shot, 1, 2, 3, and now Adam Cole is the second Triple Crown champion in NXT. The first, of course, being Johnny Gargano. The thing that makes me sad about this is that Johnny Gargano is such a loser. And I don't mean that as in, you know, I don't like him, he shouldn't be wrestling. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying this purely as a stat. Johnny Gargano has not successfully defended a championship in NXT. Period. And that man has held every title there is to hold in NXT for a male. He's held the tag team titles with Tommaso Ciampa, lost them in 2 months to AOP. Won the North American Championship in January from Ricochet, lost it to Velveteen Dream, 3 weeks later? Won the NXT title at TakeOver New York last month, or back in April, loses it now to Adam Cole. Now, I'm not saying deserve it. Now, I'm not saying it isn't deservedly so, but I'm just saying, you know, he's one of those stars like Daniel Bryan, like Kofi Kingston. Once they reach the top of the mountain, where is there really for them to go? Can they really propel past that? And Johnny Gargano, I feel his spot is, you know, climbing the mountain. You know, he can get to the top, but he won't stay on top for long. But congratulations to Adam Cole, definitely deserving of the NXT Championship. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of Let's Talk Wrestling. Hopefully we'll be back next week, and I believe we will be previewing another special. Hopefully I can get a week off from saying that. I know tomorrow night I'm going to try to watch the UFC fight with Henry Cejudo. He's one of those MMA fighters, you know, I've just kind of become a fan of. Especially after that tremendous fight that he had with Demetrius Johnson. You know, it was the only time I can remember title changing hands in UFC via judge's decision. And rightfully so, you know. Cejudo kind of dominated him throughout the match. But he has a match or a fight this Saturday night. You know, I'm hoping he wins. But we'll be back next week for professional wrestling, to talk wrestling some more. Until then, be well, stay safe. This has been Let's Talk Wrestling.